Yep.
Hello and welcome, Travis. Thanks for joining
Hi.
us today.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to have a little bit of a chat. I've got my red brain and my blue brain about
Ooh.
Dr. Stuart Stewart, who you know well, of course. His most recent article for Psychology Today, and he was writing about the triune brain. So, oh my, it's just letting me do that. So he is writing about going limbic and about learning to speak limbic.
hmm
So, what do you think of our topic?
I think it's great. I think it's very, it encompasses a lot of issues that we see today. And I think it's very central to self-reg and understanding.
Yeah, it really is. When was the first time you heard about the triune brain?
Actually, at the 2015 Summer Symposium, when we were talked about it,
Yeah.
that was the first time.
I know for me, it was a few years ago. Like it was actually before Stuart. So I think it was like probably a decade or so ago. And I just remember, I don't think I understood it all that well.
Mm.
I think when I first heard it, I was understanding that that this model, as you know, the evolutionary. It's like the three different parts of the brain that have developed at different evolutionary times. But I thought it was kind of literal, like there were really three different
Mm.
brains, and
Yep.
interesting. But I remember finding that one a little bit strange. And Sir talks about that in the article
hmm
a little bit about. So it was interesting, about the push and pull between different fields and their understandings of the triune brain. It,
Yes, definitely.
it caused a lot of outrage. So it did. I got a great story to tell you before we talk about some of the things in here. Is that so? My daughter Sienna, who you met, well, I think video conferencing met anyway, and she's 9, and so she's in her class last week, and I've actually already heard from the teacher. She's in her class, and the teacher, who doesn't know me or what I did or anything, says to the class, "Well, who knows, anything about the brain?" Sienna raises her hand, and
Right.
uh, and she says, "Well, I know about the brain." And she starts to say, "I know about the amygdala," and it goes boom, and about red brain and blue brain. And the teacher's like, "What?"
How do you know this?
Isn't that funny? And she even,
Yeah.
I guess, went so far as she came home that day all excited because she had, because she's, although she's very kind of outgoing, she can be shy, raising her hand, but all excited because she knew all this stuff. And she gave an example about how her friend had gotten hurt the
Yep.
day before. And she said, "Well, remember when, I don't know, Maddie or whoever had got really upset and started getting mad at everybody? Well, that was because her red brain went boom."
Mm.
And they're like, "Red brain went boom." So I'm going to show this just for anybody watching what it is we're talking about. So the triune brain is it's a metaphor. And actually Stuart's doing some neat things with it lately. It's not the idea that there are actually three different brains. One being the neocortex, the newer part, then the paleo mammalian, which I always think of as the limbic, where emotion and so on are housed, and all sorts of things. Also, the center of safe and taking care of the body in those sorts of ways, and then the reptilian, which is the base brain. But I remember, thinking you first hear about it and you think, well, it's just like saying there were two sides, left and right of the brain, and it's not really about that. It's a metaphor, right? It's for understanding that different parts of the brain, in my non-science term, that's what I'm good at, is taking out puppets and stuff. But it's
Right.
about saying different parts of the brain are running the show at different times, and when we understand that, it can help us know how to respond. But even that's like oversimplified, right? Because it's not like we sometimes say one part of the brain shuts down, and that doesn't happen. Like that, right, from your
Right.
studies. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to just show this, and then I thought we could talk about some examples, because this one it talked some interesting things that Stuart wrote about in this article. And so this is the one that I showed Sienna, that she sort of goes to show the teacher. It's a take on the flip your lid idea. And all I did was make a limbic brain, and this is red brain. It's supposed to be the limbic
Yep.
brain, right? And then the blue brain, you're walking along, you know, come across polar bear, flip your lid, and red brain runs the show, right? But what's really neat is, and I mean, I think that's helpful. Do you ever use that kind of understanding of even the oversimplified understanding of, am I in red brain or limbic brain?
Yes, I find if it's oversimplified, it's easier to understand the concept. Whereas if you give examples, sometimes you can get lost in the underlying theme of what's going on. So
Yeah.
if you simplify it like that, it's a lot more understandable.
Yeah. That's how I find it too. Like, it's like, I know there's all kinds of more complexities in the, neural pathways and things like that. And Stuart lately is talking about limbic states versus the limbic part of the brain, which I kind of like, because he's saying it's more like you've gone limbic, and versus, so that allows for the whole brain works together all the time, right? It's just,
Exactly.
it does help, because it's like, you notice, if I notice a little bit of, or I'm a little less patient, or then all of a sudden I realize, okay, somehow whatever this silly piece of red represents is part of it, and then you just it brings a bit of a calm just even thinking about
Knowing.
it, right? But you can see why why there's some debate over it too, right? Because it's an oversimplification of people are using hand puppets to explain the brain. What do you think about this part that Stuart has in this blog, where he talks about the limbic utterances, and he used the example of the teenager that goes, "I don't care," or sometimes they say, "I hate you," and what do you do? What did you think about all of that he was speaking of?
I thought it was very relatable, because I can remember maybe a couple years ago when that similar type of thing would happen, and I just remembered there are times when you get totally overwhelmed and upset and you just can't think straight, and you say things that you'd reflect on later, and you'd say, wow, I can't believe I said that. I didn't really mean that. Why did I say it? And then that's when you can look back and, okay, figure out what maybe happened before, or what maybe was a trigger for you to say those things, even though you didn't really mean them.
And we know that as adults we do that, but we see teenagers do it, and it's like, I can remember some things I've said that I still feel guilty. I was pretty rough as a teenager. I dropped out of school. I took off from home a bunch of times. I did a lot of those things, and I did, but when you look at it as a kid, as a red brain thing, like, overstressed, and it just literally bursts out of your mouth, right? Like, did you see that? Yeah. It's fascinating to think about that. It makes it a little bit like it doesn't hurt as much, if
exactly, because you understand, know why.
Do you think that's helpful to us, like in knowing, how could that help us, if we're a parent of a teenager or working in high schools, or like, how does understanding that maybe that's not as, it's just something that blurts out almost like a defense mechanism, like the rats. That was interesting, eh? Did you see
that? It was.
About the pitch,
Yep.
And we focus on the words. So we focus on, I hurt you, I hate you, versus if we listen for the tone, I hate you, it's it's a, I don't know, like a stress response. It just kind of bursts out of you. Does that make it okay, do you think?
I think being able to understand where the teen is coming from is extremely helpful in understanding what they're saying. When I was a kid, I was always told it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, it wasn't necessarily what I said to somebody, it was the tone of voice that I used, or the attitude that you could take out from the voice.
Yeah.
So growing up later in life, I've really learned to take that out from what other people are saying, and I can pick up on, okay, this person's not feeling comfortable, they're feeling maybe threatened by whatever's going on, because I can tell in the tone of voice what they're actually saying. So I think that's really important, and a really good skill to have later in life.
Yeah. And it's a good one for us as adults too, because when because this, like, we're talking about teens because Stuart opened up with the story about teens, right? But it really applies to all of us. But when you, that's where the limbic resonance comes in too, right? If you kind of, you lose your cool at me right now, and I recognize it as a red brain, where that paleo-mammalian part of the brain, or the limbic state, whatever we want to, so I don't take it personally. And so I may not like it. It doesn't feel nice, but in my daughter's words, my brain doesn't go boom. So I'm able to kind of keep my calm, because I just recognize you're going through your state, then that has that limbic resonance. You know, all of a sudden you're calmer because, because of course, if I say, that wasn't very nice, you shouldn't talk to mom like that, then you go, "Meh." And I go, you know, and the next thing we know, we have a full blown meltdown, right? You know, so to me that seems helpful. You know, as a parent of a daughter who's 9 and, you know, going to be heading the teens. And I remember, you know, a lot as my time as a teacher, I spent a lot of time with, like, I love teenagers because I was an at-risk. So there was something I always liked about the kind of the ones that were having the most troubles, because I found I could connect with them. And so much of what I did was just, I was trying to do Self-Reg, but I remembered just wanting somebody to just let me be me, and to just, you know, to stop telling me everything I needed to do. And, you know, that's part of what my, you know, everybody told me what I needed to do. And I was, you know, getting it from everywhere. And that the adults that I really would calm down, like, would be really, they loved me. Like, so I had these adults that couldn't, you know, I was sent to the office constantly sort of thing. And then others who adored me, but I was the same person. I just was more me. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, you know, teen years were a long time ago. But, you know, some of those people just naturally kind of get that it's not personal, and it's, and it's not a rational thing necessarily. It's in a moment of, you know, limbic crisis.
Yeah. One of the other things that I noticed too, and even looking back on my high school career, was some of the teachers that I had.
Yeah.
And if I was to get in trouble or go to the principal's office or whatever, the principal that I remember specifically, he would always talk very slow, talk in a low voice, very calm, and just talk about it rather than just jumping to the conclusion that you shouldn't have done this, rather than trying to pull out of me why I may have done something.
Yeah.
And it was a really good experience. And looking back on it, I can take out how that's helped me throughout the rest of my life and growing up.
Neat.
So I think it's really important that parents and educators can understand a child and what they're actually saying, rather than just going straight to the customer, to the discipline.
And trying to understand. And so many parents go to the discipline because they're I mean, you know, people who take a, you know, behavior management approach, or you know, or a school, it's often because they want their kids or their students to grow up to be good, responsible kids, you know. But I think that's the whole point here, that if they hear that we're doing, you know, the gentleness and the calmness, that we're going easy on kids, but it's not that, right? It's trying to work with, you know, what we understand about brain body stress responses, and recognizing that that good kid, that good person is in there, and, you know, and just to not back them into the corner anymore. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's a hard time too, those transition years, the teenagers, and I think goes right into mid-20s. You're how old right now?
23.
23. So, I mean, you're kind of somebody you got a lot on the go. I first met you, you told me you're going to be a neuroscientist, and you were in your undergrad, and I know you're heading towards your master's next year. So, and I believed you instantly. But did you go through some of these struggles? I mean, you're a musician as well, and you've worked hard your whole life. Did you go through some of these struggles were you the wild teenager?
Wild, I wouldn't say wild. I would say I might have been a little bit stubborn in my ways.
Yeah.
I always remember my mom saying that I had to learn things the hard way, not necessarily the easiest way.
Yeah.
But I mean, we moved out to the outskirts of Barrie, somewhat of a big town.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really feel that being out in nature for a lot of the time was very self-regulating, and it gave me and my 2 other brothers the space in order to develop. And I really think that helped with being able to handle everything that I do nowadays.
Yeah.
And just the business of trying to juggle work, school, family, social things like that. Yeah. I really think that helped me figure out how to self-regulate for myself.
You figured it out early.
Well, it's not there yet.
And I've got, you know, a lot of people think I've got, but they have no idea. I've learned the hard way too. I was very much one of those that had to learn. But a lot of the reason I think I'm good at what I do is because I can relate. I've been there, you know, and not in every situation, but certainly a lot of the ones with the ones that have struggled. If you were going to give some advice to, now recognizing, as I say this, that it's not, we don't want that kind of, like we work a lot in our work around trying to teach people the difference between self-regulation and self-control, right? And that self-regulation is about managing the energy and tension. So we're recognizing, and then we manage the energy and tension. We're not trying to, you know, try harder, do better, or be the right thing, or suppress. Like we try, and that confuses a lot of people. So it gets tricky when we get on advice, because advice is so easy to give people those great thou shalts, which always sound wonderful, you know, but sometimes they put more stress on us and don't help us. Like if you were going to think of some self-reg-ish advice that you could give to any group. So it could be the teenagers, could be young, you know, students like you are in post-secondary. It could be parents or teachers. What advice would you give that might help them around, you know, this basic understanding of the triune brain and self-reg?
Trial and error, I would say. That was what I had to do. It was, you recognize that you're going into high tension, low energy, and you really just have to try things rather than going to the first thing and saying, oh, this isn't working for me, because then it just keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. So you really have to just stay calm. As hard as it is to do in the moment, you just really got to focus and try and persevere. And I think it will blossom and flourish if you persevere.
The trial and error is neat. I once said to Stuart, this is about a year ago, when I don't know if I told you, but I was having some health problems. Well, they turned out to be related to a medication I was on for my asthma, but it was a real health scare for me. I was having heart thing, they tested me for everything. Anyway, and I kept thinking, because I've always been, most of my life, been pretty physically fit and things, but I got out of my rhythm once I left my yoga studio and everything in the north. And so I kept telling myself, here I am practicing self-reg and not self-control. And then I should go and do this. I should go and do that. And he said to me, because I felt exercise would have made a difference, which it would have. But what I was trying to do was make myself do it. And he said, look, if it's that hard, if it's feeling that uncomfortable, it's not what you need to do right now. What do you actually feel like doing? Do that. And, if it's to go and curl up and read with a book, do that. If it's to sleep more, he said, then that's what you need to do, right? And just sort of trust that, and the little things, the little tweaks, and the little made a difference. And that really, really was kind of a bit of an aha moment. The other one I really think that can help is for parents thinking about just this basic understanding of you can build these yourself, right? But this basic understanding that there are different parts of the brain, and it's super oversimplified, but that, if a kid is having a tantrum at 2, like, we recognize the kid that has a tantrum at 2, and we say, oh, he's tired, or, usually we're able to see, some people are still trying to behavior manage that out of the child. And these are good people. They think that's what it's about, but it's a total stress system meltdown. But to recognize it's with teenagers, it's with you and me, it's with my mom who's 81, this is all of us. It's Stuart. Everybody has these moments. And if you start to look for the signs, you can physically see some of them. You can see the big eyes, and the voice goes up, and the tension and things. But just even if it's out of character and they're saying, I hate you, or all, whatever, that, okay, if this just kind of flipped, what can I do? And oftentimes it's just to, be present, to back away, let them have a little bit of space. And you look at them with those different eyes and realize, okay, it's their brain taking care of themselves, right? It's not something we want to change. It's actually survival brain has kicked in. They feel threatened, overstressed, and then even just knowing that brings you a bit more calm, and you work through it later, right? So yeah,
I can even notice that in school.
Yeah.
With a lot of students, I can notice when students are, when they have too much going on, even if we're in a study group. So if we're doing a group project and it's around midterm time, I can tell the ones that have a lot going on because they're not totally focusing, they're looking around all the time. And just doing self-reg has really helped me to notice the things in other students that the telltale signs that they're just overstressed.
Yeah.
They have to
You
need
see
to
it
self-regulate.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Even the thing about reading or being able to focus, right? You, instead of trying harder, recognize it. Oh, I got to go restore a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you wore blue and I wore red. We didn't coordinate this.
No, you didn't.
I did think about my red brain when I put on my red, but look, you're very blue and I'm very red. No. Well, thanks. I think that was kind of an interesting conversation, and Stuart's blog is we're worth reading, and it's "They Help I Don't Speak Limbic," and really that's what we're talking about. Is you can learn the real basics of this. You might be able to add more because you love the brain and that's what you're studying. You might be able to add more, terminology. It is not about fancy terms. It's about recognizing these states and knowing how to respond. And it's our response that can make a really big difference, not just for the other person, for ourselves too. Keep us sane.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it. You want to leave us with any final words today?
Persevere. I really feel as though that just keep pushing, don't give up, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. No matter what the problem is, there's always hope.
There really is. And the more we learn about the science and try to think about it in our own lives, the more this is opening up for us. So I'll have to have you back. We'll come back and we'll do another one. We have to do music. You bring your guitar next time.
Awesome.
There's a great blog because we're going to do a blog each time we do one of these. And I think that the next fun one would be to unpack the brain, Self-Reg, and music. That was one of Stuart's earlier blogs as well. So, well, thanks. Take care and enjoy the day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.